Leftover lasagna.
Leftover lasagna.
Lasagna? No way.
It's a type of sandwich.
Some kind of gross pasta.
Leftover lasagna is a
podcast
hosted by
my
Nitin
church
Sundar and Tony Uncle. Leftover lasagna.
Very funny name.
Hello and welcome to Leftover Lasagna, the weekly-ish podcast that resembles the kid with glasses on the first bench in class who asks doubts to teachers even as the interval bell rings, takes 3 extra answer sheets during exams, and still places in the last quartile when the exam results come. This is the podcast that makes up for a lack of talent with lots of enthusiasm. In essence, what we're saying is please don't copy from our answer sheets. We have no idea what we're doing. I am Tony, the man who has extensively prepared for the maths exam and walks in confidently only to realize that the exam schedule today is organic chemistry. And joining me is the man with whom women wish they share an organic chemistry. The man who takes no supplementary answer sheets because he already has the solutions. And the only man for whom the women's request changes from please tidy up my sheets to please mess up my bed sheets. Say
Oh
hi,
my God.
Nitin Sundar.
Hello, Tony. Do you know that you inadvertently said exactly what the Pakistan cricket team captain said after losing a test match against Bangladesh last week?
Oh,
He said,
what is this?
yeah, because Pakistan were blindsided for the test series by getting pitches that they did not expect and by having practiced in other formats instead of the long form of the game. And Shan Masood, the captain of Pakistan, explaining his team's predicament preparing for test matches after playing one-day games, said,
आप रेड बॉल क्रिकेट में अगर बेहतर होना है तो आपने रेड बॉल क्रिकेट की प्रेपरेशन करनी है. आप साइंस पढ़ के मैथ्स का पेपर नहीं दे सकते.
Oh my God, I have not been following this. Also, doesn't Shan Masood mean like fantastic gums or something? Every time I hear the word Masude, I remember that Abhishek Upmanyu clip where he's talking about Masude, and that's how I know that it means gums in Hindi. So Shan
I had
Masood.
no idea.
It's probably like
Masood means gums as in gums in your mouth.
Masude. Yeah, gums in your mouth.
Oh, really?
पर यार तेरे मसूड़े बड़े गंदे हैं. Exactly. It took a little time for me to register this completely. मैं कहा हाँ यार I have to work on it. एक मसूड़े? मसूड़े होते किसके अच्छे? मसूड़े कोई एलिगेंट बॉडी पार्ट नहीं है. Like you'll never see guys talking about girls. भाई बंदी क्या मसूड़े थे यार. ये बंदी का ये वाला पार्ट इतना सुंदर है ना, ये वाला मजा ही आता देख.
Shan Masood just reminds me of Shan Masala. I can't think of anything else because Shan Masala also originates from Pakistan, right? One of the most famous allspice mixes that you get in the Western world is a Pakistani export, right? And Pakistan cricket is, of course, full of masala. So Shan Masood is perfect to be the captain of Pakistan.
Shan Masala, and Shan we know like the famous singer whose biggest hit was Tanha Dil, which is how he's feeling, I'm sure, because we know what the Pakistan support system is like.
Yeah.
But this is not our cricket podcast, Nitin.
Correct. Which you famously are not listening to clearly because we spoke about this whole thing at length. But any cricket connoisseurs listening to Leftover Lasagna, do check out our elder sister podcast, which is Bits and Pieces Cricket.
Alternatively, if you're listening to Bits and Pieces, please also... Oh, that won't work. No?
So two negatives don't make a positive. So we don't have Bits and Pieces listeners here who we can convert into Bits and Pieces listeners. If you are a listener of Leftover Lasagna who has not listened to either Bits and Pieces or Simplified in the past, we would like to hear from you. Please identify yourself. We need more people like you. We want to know how to find you in the wild.
Correct.
So please drop in a comment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, what we're saying is for this podcast, with these intersections, there are no listeners.
We decided to go in with a light topic today because we feel we have gone too deep into the woods with our serious discussions. So the topic for today's discussion is going to be things that irk us or things that irritate us. So that is our light episode.
Like two things I hate doing. One is, when we solutionize. Second is when we take ourselves too seriously. Right? And inadvertently, by virtue of trying an experiment in episode 5, we then proceeded for 15 more episodes where we were way too serious. But I think we've reached a logical endpoint where we need a palate cleanser. And famously, Nitin's most favorite podcast, Everything is Everything. And his favorite sitcom is Seinfeld, which is a show about nothing. Right.
Yeah.
So this is probably the nothing episode where we are going in with the Seinfeld premise of whatever it is. Right.
Indeed. Since you started off with answer sheets and examinations, right? Why don't we start there? In Chennai, where
Yeah.
I was growing up, they would give us one thick booklet of answer
Yeah.
sheets to start with, and then towards the end, you keep adding more sheets, and they
Adding
give you a
more
thread.
sheets,
They give you a thread, a white thread, which you need to. And the thread, by the way, I don't know if you have noticed, used to have a very distinctive smell. And I used to like to smell that. I think it had some petroleum material or something. Early signs of addiction there. But have you ever submitted an answer sheet where you've taken a lot of extra sheets in the last 2 or 3 minutes in a hurry, but you've not had time to fill them in with anything? So there's just extra sheets dangling at the end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
loose
but
sheets.
Nitin, just to clarify, the saying is stop and smell the roses, not stop and smell the ropes. Like I think you've switched the P with an S. Why are you smelling the thread? No, but I somehow have always been the person who finishes exams before time, right? I know this because there is this your brother's friend Chakti Sri Gopalan, who was a singer, who was in my same school, and she was like 2 years junior to me, and apparently we were like sitting together for some exam, and she was struggling to tie her answer sheets because it was social studies or something. So you had economics, history, civics,
Right.
and geography with 4 different teachers but one paper. So you had to finish all the exams and tie up all the sheets. And I was apparently sitting wetty and I tied all the sheets for her. So this was the
Ooh.
basis for our friendship after school when she said, "Do you remember this?" And I'm like, "I have no fucking clue, dude." Like, okay.
No, but
So
it makes a lot of sense that it's tough to tie the answer papers in social science, especially because history, geography, economics, civics, and never shall the twain meet. So you can't tie those sheets up again.
Mark Twain.
Mark Twain. Did she respond by tying a friendship band, or was it Raki that she tied for you? Did she friend zone you?
Much later, when we sort of started speaking to each other, she said, "Do you remember this?" And I'm like, "No, I have no idea." Actually, okay, cool. Also, hello from Australia. I think this is the
Oh, yeah.
farthest we've been geographically.
Yeah, this is the second episode of Leftover Lasagna that is transcontinental. I'm back in Asia and you're in Australia. So
This is true.
Leftover Lasagna is going places one way or the other. Let's dive right in. Let's talk about the first thing that irritates you, Tony.
Yeah, here's the thing, right? So while I'm traveling, because my job has changed a little, I also travel frequently. It annoys me so much that to figure out how a shower operates, right, in hotels
Yeah.
or homes that you're in, probably abroad, is so freaking hard, man, and it shouldn't
Yeah.
be, right? And first of all, there is like a hand shower which is also attached. There's an overhead shower. There are some
Yeah.
other health faucets that might or might not be part of the thing. You know what a health faucet is? It is hospitality speak for a bum spray, basically.
Yeah, which is good in the West. You anyway don't run into health faucets, so that's
Correct.
one lesser complication to worry about. So,
No, but they have bidets, no, which is an entirely separate thing for you to just
Yeah.
wash. Yeah. Here's the thing about design, right? Which I learned. My bio for the longest time was I push doors that say pull, right? And it was both a cheeky reference to how stupid I am, but also how I go against conventions, right? And there is this beautiful book called The Design of Everyday Things, which is outlasted. I think it's been published infinite number of times. The only other book that would have outsold this is, come on, as a parent, Nitin Sundar. The question only parents can answer.
Sapiens. No. Wait.
What are you buying, Melinda? Come on. When he was small, this is the
Harry
book you
Potter, no.
definitely had. Definitely had
Pig.
this book.
Peppa Pig.
No, when he was really small. Probably the first book he had.
No, I'm drawing a blank. This must be some very popular book, but
Yes, this is a 1969 book called The Very Hungry Caterpillar,
I've never heard of
designed
it.
by Eric.
Wow.
Come on, man, what are you saying? Of course
Yeah.
you've seen it. Okay, you
No.
need to ask Shruti. There is there. Okay, so the claim to fame of this book was, I think, on average from 1969 till now, it has sold one copy every minute or something like that. So it's basically a caterpillar that goes through, before it becomes a butterfly. On day one, it eats something. Day two, it eats some two things, that, this, and the other. And the book basically has holes the caterpillar makes. There is no way you've not seen
Yeah,
this.
yeah. I've seen the book with the holes. Yes. And remember the name of the book, but
Yeah.
this rings a bell.
Remember this lack of memory on your part. We will come back to this. Yeah. The whole point being design of everyday things talks about how there is no such thing as bad design, right? It is just designers being really useless at indicating how things work, right? And like something like a shower, if you fail to operate it correctly, you're suddenly feeling a lack of self-esteem, right? But his point is that there is no such thing as bad design. Whatever the thing allows you to do, which is called an affordance, also needs a signifier which says how you should enact that particular thing. The whole thing about showers is that you don't know which shower you're activating, you don't know what temperature you're activating, and you're basically left in a tizzy, right? I find it incredibly stupid that, like,
Yeah.
after years of civilization, we haven't arrived at a solution that works universally.
Firstly, it takes time to figure out how to operate showers. You're right. After you've figured out how to operate it, to get it to the right temperature you need takes another whole couple of minutes, right? Lots of them have these mechanisms which will just give you a jet of ice cold water for about 30 seconds before they
Correct.
go into scalding steam mode. Like, there's nothing in between. There's nothing in between. Sometimes you can actually smell your skin singeing, right? It feels like I'm like, oh my god, I feel like a chicken that's being skinned alive. What is happening to me? There is at least one convention, right? I've seen it in 80 to 90% of the places that generally if you turn the knob to the left, it's warm.
Correct.
And if you
Correct.
turn the knob to the right, it's cold.
Yeah.
But there are places where this convention isn't formed. How
But
much is a different
many
question?
degrees? How many degrees equal to degrees in temperature is
Yeah.
a very different question.
It's a protracted conflict to try and find this out.
No, but what about the ones where there are two showers? Like, there is a button push which you can switch. There is a knob
boy.
that you can turn. There is something
Yeah.
under this which you can.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
how?
yeah.
How do you figure it?
And those button switches thing don't work really well. So very often when you want your overhead shower to activate, you will end up having half of the water going out through the tap faucet below, right? And only half of the water makes it to the shower. So then you need to bend and hold that switch down while you hold the shower above you. And then you have color coding, right? So that, which is good. There are these times when color coding or text, there are two separate knobs, one that says hot and one that says cold, or one that's blue in color and one that's red in color. So the blue one is of course supposed to be cold and the red hot. Except sometimes these two are switched. So they put the cold shower on the left and the hot shower on the right.
What, really?
So you think, oh, okay, they've changed the convention, but at least they're telling us clearly which one is which. So good. But then you find they've switched it, but also switched it back in. So actually, when you turn the hot shower, it will give you
No,
cold
the
water.
labels have been just misplaced.
The labels have been misplaced, right? Literally, if they had no labels there, you would not have had a problem. But they had the labels and put them wrong just to fuck you up, right?
Do you know of this president called Lyndon Johnson? Of course you do.
He doesn't know me though.
He used to have a shower setting where he needed a high pressure jet onto his onto his penis for some reason.
Why?
Have you heard of this?
No, I've not heard of this. This is a very Lyndon Johnson specific quirk, is it?
Wait, are you saying that other people want like a strong stream of water onto
Nobody
their
does. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Correct.
This guy wanted it and it became public knowledge. Pubic knowledge, to be precise.
This guy actually was very obsessed with his penis. Okay, apparently he had a big penis or something, and he had a name for his penis.
His name is Johnson. So
Johnson, yeah. London, not London, not but Lyndon.
Hi, I would like to add you to my professional network on Lyndon.
So he was incredibly demanding and wanted the shower to have multiple nozzles that pumped the equivalent of a fire hose.
Wow.
Onto his thing.
Yeah.
And his whole point was that apparently he had a nickname for his thing also. I think he called it Jumbo or Trumbo, one of these things.
Wow.
So
second lady.
not to be confused with Anil Kumble.
What is the joke?
Jumbo, no?
Oh, that Jumbo. Okay.
And he wanted of equivalent of a fire hose spraying things onto this thing.
How often was his appendage on fire, though? I really wonder. And
Yeah,
why?
you heard of setting ass to fire, but fire under your ass, but this is somewhere else. But the whole point was he always used to apparently show everyone who walked into the White House how big his penis was. So that was.
Say hello to my little friend.
And we are now thinking that Trump is probably the worst character who ever became president, right? But like I'm guessing, like in the past, all these quirks were just excused as quirks.
So the moral of the story is, if you want showers that work properly, set to the exact settings that you want, the first step you need to take is to become the president of the United States. Otherwise,
Correct.
unfortunately, Tony, you're going to continue to have to suffer with bad showers and very, very cryptic settings, which you're never going
This
to
is
be
the
able to crack.
motivation. This is the motivation.
Yeah. So 20 years from now, when you become president, you can say, back in 2024, I was doing a podcast with my friend when I realized. We know that most of Europe and America doesn't have the health faucet. Does Australia have the bidet spray?
No.
So they're paper
toilet
based.
papers till the end of the
Toilet
world.
papers. So do you know that on Amazon they now have this? I think it costs $500 or something. It's a portable bidet that you can carry with you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Correct.
half a liter and it's really good. We carried it with us when we went to Europe this time, and it does the job. I mean, you do the job, but it does its job.
Therefore,
It's a
I don't think
lifesaver.
we need to get till like Japanese toilets. I feel like
Yeah, that's called over engineering things. Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Excellent. Moving on then from the toilet to one of the things that irritates me the most. I think we could again do a separate podcast on me and traffic quirks, or how traffic irritates me. But one very specific thing that I want to talk about today, which is how, if you're driving towards an intersection, right, and let's say your signal is green, but you're not going straight, you're turning left, let's say at an intersection on a green signal. Have you noticed how vehicles always slow down at the intersection before they take a turn, even when they're like fully green and they don't have any reason to turn? And this is
Correct.
particularly egregious if they're taking a U-turn, right? So if you're on the U-turn lane, you see that cars really slow down almost to a standstill before they make that turn. To the extent that by the time you get to the turning, the light's probably turning red already. And then you're just cursing at all those people who took their own sweet time to make that turn. And as an allied associated issue that I've noticed is, if you're standing in line at a signal and you're waiting for it to turn green, you can see that it's turned green, right? And you imagine the moment it turns green, you should be moving because every vehicle in front of you should already be moving the moment it turns green. But it never works out that way, right? There's an accumulated lag of maybe 7, 8, 10 seconds at times before you start moving. And the most irritating thing is sometimes even before you start moving, it's already turned red. So you've made no progress. You're still exactly where you were. You will start moving after it's turned red, but a few yards and then you're waiting again. Yeah. So do traffic at signals irritate you?
Yeah, no, traffic in general annoys me, right? Like, but this specific one, I feel like there is a correlation between turning radius and speed, right? So
Of course.
it is dependent on both the configuration of the vehicle and the skill of the driver, etc., etc. Right? So
Yeah.
but you know what would be worse if someone took a quick U-turn and then they realize they can't do the full turning radius, so they have to back up and like they do like a 3-4 point turn and then go, right? Like
If there's a water truck that's doing that, then your day is screwed.
depends on
That has
the
happened.
pressure of the water. And if you can
Yeah.
find the setting. Water trucks also have the shower kind of driving thing. Like you don't know which button to press to turn.
People sometimes use turning lights the way they switch the hot and cold in the showers, right? They put the left turn and they turn right. Or they just put the left and keep going straight. You don't know if that's a vestige from the past or something. It's an eventual left.
Oh yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld
Eventual
speaks about this in one of his bits, right? The eventual
Yeah.
left is when you turn to turn, but
But-
you have no idea when you're going to use
I think it's largely a Kerala thing where the hazard lights in Kerala people use it to say they're going straight. So like both lights are blinking and it means
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going straight. It's
You
like
better stay away.
pulling equally to the right and the left. So that is
oh.
very, very courteous of people. No, but I was asking on this related note, have you heard of this thing called a ghost jam or a ghost traffic jam? where you're like, you've been slowed down for on the freeway or
Yeah.
something for like minutes together, and then you finally reach a point where everyone goes smoothly, and you're like, what
Yeah.
happened here? Like, what is the
Yeah,
reason
yeah,
for
yeah.
the jam? It's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
that
yeah. I see.
basically someone at some point just braked, and then
And
every
created.
subsequent car had to brake, and then it sends the wave backwards. And
Right.
even though there is no accident or no impediment, it is that traffic basically keeps, it's called a traffic wave. It keeps going
Interesting.
back and back, and then
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
get there, there's nothing. But have you heard of this thing called a pesometer?
Pesometer. No. What's
So
that?
I came across this on Rory Sutherland. I mentioned him before. He's the author of this book called Alchemy.
Ah.
Basically, he is about consumer behavior and like behavioral economics, but in a marketing context. So apparently, some, I think, cars in the UK or something, in addition to the speedometer, has a pesometer, which says that if you go at this particular speed, how fast will you reach or how much time will you save? And basically his point is that if you move beyond say 80, the
Mhm.
incremental difference in how much you're saving time is very very minimal, right? So
Yeah.
it's a curve that goes reverse in that
Correct.
sense. And therefore, like if you're late, there is no point in stepping your pace up from 80 to 100, because realistically over a 30-minute period you'll save like 1 or 2 minutes. That's it, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah, yeah.
as opposed to if you increase your speed from say 40 to 60, then there is a massive difference and stuff
Yeah.
like that, which was
Interesting.
interesting. Mm.
I think this is the kind of analysis that would be of great benefit to Royal Challengers Bangalore to figure
Shout out to Uttara.
out. Cool. Let's move on to
Mm.
the next topic of discussion, Tony. Bring us your
Yeah.
next irk.
So I spoke of how your memory is always compromised, right? We mentioned the very hungry caterpillar, and you were confident that Millen never had this book till I explained the plot to you.
Confident. Yeah.
And now you claim you've had the book, but the fact
Yeah.
is that we can never verify if you've actually come across the book, or is it a false memory that I've put in your mind by virtue of so confidently asserting that you've seen it, that you've
Yeah.
started imagining it, right? And the reason why I mentioned this is that so before coming off to Australia, I thought I should get my car serviced and keep it, make sure like it doesn't just lie there and break down or whatever.
Really?
And so obviously,
I would have definitely waited to come back and then get it serviced. Yeah.
what is going to happen in the interim period?
I mean, you want to have your car serviced and good to drive, right? If it's just standing
Oh,
around after service, it's just
it's
actually
just
what happened. Nothing is going to happen. But yeah,
yeah.
it just feels like, I want it fresh and serviced so that I'm driving soon after it's
See,
been serviced.
I mean, if I'm being serviced, I'd like to go to sleep after that, to be honest. But anyway, different point, different podcast. The point is that, so obviously, one of the efficiency things here is that I am definitely not going to drive it to the service center and drop it off. Right? Someone is, even if it's a paid service, someone's coming home, picking it up and dropping it back, right? And so I gave the car to this guy in the morning, and I said, when will I get the car back? He said, I don't know. They'll, dispatch some driver and they'll come and you'll get a notification. I said, okay, cool. Around 6 p.m., the guy who was returning the car came and he parked it in the parking lot with a lot of other cars where a bunch of drivers also stand around. So I'm like, wait, how do I recognize this guy? Right? Like,
Mm.
and there is one guy standing next to the car, but he looks like relatively, well dressed. I don't think, I mean, no value judgment here, but I'm not sure if he's an owner of a car or someone who's dropping off. And in India how it can be offensive to assume that someone's
Yeah.
dropping off the car when you so I was like, have you seen the person who brought this car here? And he's like, sir, what are you saying? You took the car from you in the
Oh,
morning.
he's the
You
same guy
gave
from the
me
morning.
key. Yeah. He's like, how do you not remember? And I'm like, oh fuck.
No, you are the perfect out. I, of course, remember you, but you told me somebody else is going to drop the car in the evening. So I obviously assumed it's someone else. You are the
Yeah.
perfect exit. The perfect comeback to that. Yeah.
No, but this got me thinking about, because I think this was the previous night when, after the disappointment of watching Maharaja, you made me watch what is the movie? Chitta. Chitte.
Chitta, yes. Chitta, Chitti. Chitti is this. long-running, insufferable Tamil serial, which is probably still running. But yeah, not to be confused with Chitta.
No, but Chitta, and basically towards the end, the criminal in that movie actually
Spoiler alert.
shaves off his beard and goes bald and all. And like people are wondering why this guy can't be recognized, right? Like during when we were
Yeah.
watching the movie, I'm like, how are you not spotting this guy? Like he's obviously at the traffic signal, catch him. And then this happened the next day, and I'm like there is no way that eyewitnesses work, right? Because like
Yeah.
if I were asked to pick the guy who took my car away in the morning out of a lineup,
Yeah.
I would at best be guessing at random, right? So I'm like extremely surprised when eyewitness testimony is considered the clincher evidence, right? So much so
Yeah.
that even after 6 months of committing the crime or 1 year or whatever, the prosecution uses an eyewitness as the strongest kind of testimony, except that it is not scientifically valid at all. So much so that out of all the studies done, some 380 people who were convicted falsely, 75% due to eyewitness testimony. And they were exonerated after spending about 14 years in jail on average
Yeah.
because DNA testing exonerated them. Right? But
Correct.
here's the whole point, bringing it back to your favorite author who should sell a copy a minute, Yuval Noah Harari, is that the power of stories is so much that
Yeah.
you, as a person who supposedly saw it, is either confident that this is the eyewitness, or when you're coached by police, you are easily saying that, I
Correct.
remember seeing this guy doing something. And false memory is a big part of it, right? Like,
No, there was this bizarre news that came out, I think 2-3 weeks back. I mean, tangentially related to the point you were making, where the cops actually put out a sketch of a culprit. Okay, and it was a very specific. It didn't look like one of the usual kind of sketches that get done. It looked very specifically off. It looked like the face of a person, and not like what they estimate a face to look like. And then they later released the photo of the culprit that they caught. And then people figured out these people took a photo and then sketched it out and said, this is how the culprit looks. We used this to catch him. They did the exact opposite. And yeah.
We think that the most skillful criminals have a story to them, right? And we read about it very this thing, and we're like, ooh, like, how did they even catch him? But if you think about it, in my estimation, like at least 30% of the world's greatest criminals have never been caught because they've not left a trace of evidence, right?
Right.
Probably in this day and age, it becomes much more easier because like, DNA testing is rampant and you have CCTVs everywhere. But if someone really wanted to sort of commit a crime and get away with it, there are really no deterrents to it, right? But so two things ensue out of this. One is that we still think that torturing a person is a way to extract information out of them, when it really isn't, right? Like torture does not get any kind of information except the one that you want to probably hear. And also, there is no way to stop terrorists. Why?
I don't agree, no. Like torture obviously works if someone is withholding information from you that they have. Torture, of course, doesn't work on people who don't have information, right? So,
the entire existence of Guantanamo Bay has proved that like torture doesn't work at all, basically. Right?
No,
like,
the
it
entire
doesn't have
existence of Guantanamo
any
Bay
useful
proves that catching the wrong people and doing whatever you want to them is not going to work at all. That doesn't say that torture doesn't work. If you are able to catch the right person and you know that that person has information, you can torture the information out of them.
No.
How? I mean, you have to like what I'm saying doesn't require science to be disproven. It is a straight statement.
Scientifically,
somebody
can you
has
extract,
a fact.
Therefore, Nitin, the scientific question here is: can you extract information out of a plant by torturing it? Because scientifically, plants are also living beings.
Yeah. Famously, the person who gives you rice is the Annadatta, right? So Anna data. So you can get information out of plants also. There you go.
So I mean, again, going back to science, is that it has been proven repeatedly over and over again.
Let me
tell you
the difference between your analogy and mine. Is they say if you've dropped your keys, right, in an open field, there is no point going and looking at the place where there is light. You need to look in the place where the key has been dropped. Now you cannot say lights don't help you find things on the basis of this. You need to shine the light at the right space. It's the same thing.
Which is why I'm sharing scientific article from Nature.
Let me tell you something about how headlines get written.
This is science paper, my love.
Scientific,
Everything
okay.
we know from psychology, physiology, neuroscience, and psychiatry suggests that torture as a method of information extraction does not work. On the other hand, beyond anecdotes, there is no evidence to support coercion as an effective form of interrogation. In fact, there is evidence showing that non coercive forms of interrogation are much better. So let's define the scope of the problem, right? The scope of
Please.
the problem is you've identified the right people who have information
I
but
see.
are
Okay.
not willing to give it to you. Now, is
I see.
torture effective or not? Is what you're trying to answer. And what science is saying is that torture is not effective at all.
There is a logical fallacy to this thing that I'm not able to look past. I'm hoping that somewhere this.
Of course, man, covered. Do you know how double blind tests work? Okay. Summary: 4 types of coercive and non coercive interview strategies: legalistic, physical, cognitive, and social.
Okay,
In
so what this
response to
is saying
social
is
strategies, detainees were more likely to disclose meaningful information.
fair. So what this is saying is there are
They were
other
less
techniques
likely
that are
to
better.
cooperate.
There are other techniques that are better than torture.
One second. Have you never read a science paper? They won't tell you outright that this doesn't work, right? They will use words like, they were less likely to cooperate when confronted
Your
with
headline
evidence.
literally said does not work, and you literally have
It
been
does
telling me
not
does not
work.
work.
It does
So I have
not
an
work.
alternate. I have an alternative. You catch a detainee, okay, who you know has the information. Don't do anything to him. Just put
Right.
him in a room and wait for 100 years and see if he gives you the information. I guarantee you torture is more effective than doing that.
Oh,
Scientifically.
just because torture is better than some form doesn't mean that torture is useful.
Torture
right?
is not the
But
best form, is not the
see,
point you made. And if that was the point you made, I would have not gotten into an argument with you. You said torture does not work.
okay, there are because we are movie fans. There are 2 things that movies show you in India, right? One is as soon as you catch some suspect, the police is immediately unleashing
Torture.
third degree on them. And by third
Yeah.
degree, I don't mean that they're asking to enroll into a PhD and then like spend years together because that is the third degree that they take. But like just sheer torture, right? And suddenly he spits out facts. This is patently false. One. Two is that they show you that eyewitnesses come and testify and like they are able to identify, and that is usually the turning point
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
case. Both of these are like really suboptimal.
Fair. Agreed.
Okay.
On that
And the
note,
third,
you should watch this movie called Kurudi Punal in Tamil, which was a remake of a Hindi film called Drokhal, which is a
that sounds like
Govind.
someone from Game of Thrones, man. Carl Drogo. I don't know.
Drogo Baggins.
Didier Drogba. Okay. Anyhow.
Didier Drogba. Yeah. So Drokhal had, I think, Nasiruddin Shah and I always confuse. I never know who is Amrish Puri and who is Om Puri. Who is Mogambo? Not Mogambo. Mogambo's brother.
You're
Om
asking
Puri, I
me.
think.
Yeah. You're asking me.
Yeah. I think that's Amrish Puri was Mogambo. His brother
Mm.
Om Puri is the actor in this film and in several other films. It's about a couple of cops and this mastermind criminal that they catch and then try to torture and all of that. It's a fantastic film. It was remade in Tamil with Kamal Hassan and Arjun playing the cops. One of those movies where I feel the adaptation was even better than the original. The original itself is fantastic, but do watch it if you can
Okay.
in either or both languages. Yeah.
I shall. We shall. But okay. So the related thing that I wanted to say here is that while torture doesn't work, the other thing is that
Wait. Torture works. Torture doesn't work as well as some other techniques. There are other methods that work better. I get you. I buy that. I'm not even going to argue that. Right? I'm sure there are other methods that work far better than torture.
do you know again based on the Gitmo experience is that what detainees basically said was the worst form of torture. It is not waterboarding or one of those things. It is. Do you know
Yeah.
what it is?
Solitary confinement. No.
No, none of those. It's basically like I think they were like put in a place where they just repeatedly played like kids songs like I love you, you love me, we're the best
that can
friends
get
there,
you, yeah.
and it just like keeps playing on repeat and you can't
Yeah,
like
yeah,
shut
that
it out
can
of your
really-
head and like
Yeah.
Therefore, what we should try and do is like play leftover lasagna episodes back to back to detainees, high value people, and see if they actually fess up. They're like, enough torture. Pa. I will tell you everything.
One more movie reference. Have you watched Clockwork Orange?
It's a
Yes.
Clockwork Orange.
A Clockwork Orange. You remember that scene where they try to get the violence out of this guy by putting him in a straitjacket and making him watch videos
Yeah.
of violence
Yeah.
and torture. This is like the reverse. You show people torture videos not to get them to confess, but to actually get violence out of them.
Works. Does it work in the
Of
movie?
course, I mean that the movie is of course a piece of fiction, and you remember how that movie ends, right? So
No, I actually don't. The parts that I remember are that there is a milk bar for some reason and they drink milk a lot. Right? No?
So the movie is broadly about this bunch of extremely super violent
Correct.
dudes,
Yeah, I
right,
remember all that.
who get caught, and then they are subject to this psychological cognitive treatment which intends to cure them of their violence, right? And basically the treatment is, you give someone the poison in order to build the antidote, right? That's the concept. So they're made to sit and watch extremely brutal graphic violence repeatedly, and they're not even allowed to turn their neck. Their heads are belted, their necks are bolted so that they can't look away. Their eyes are held open so that they can't even close their eyes when gory scenes of violence are depicted. And after a period of this treatment, these people's character completely changes. The violence actually goes out of them. They become extremely meek, and then they're released. After they get released, they get beaten up by the outside world. So the movie makes a more philosophical point about how state cannot and should not intervene in changing the personalities of people, because that can have its own adverse consequences. Anyway, Stanley Kubrick, of course, made some extremely strange and very, very
Not Spielberg. Not
not
Spielberg.
Spielberg, but yeah, strange. Also, Doctor Strangelove was a Stanley
Oh, I
Kubrick
love
movie,
Dr.
which is very popular.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Correct. What is the
But,
tagline for a clock?
Hope they never catch ya. Pray they never touch ya.
So the allied thing that I want to say here was that torture doesn't work. And therefore, also it is impossible to stop a terrorist. Like if someone really wants to do something, all the security apparatus in the world will fail, like we saw with like Trump's potential shooter, right? And therefore, like any of these things that exist, whether it is if you go to a hotel now, post 26/11, you will see so many security checks, right? Or you will see when you fly Indigo, outside the pilot's cabin, there will be a sticker that says, "Flying is a serious business. Please leave your worries outside this door before you go in." Right? And this is supposedly a message for the pilot, but you're seeing it. And my point is that they are just meant to be signals to you to say that they take security and safety seriously, as opposed to it actually doing anything. It is basically what is called the illusion of control, right? So this is a thing which designers built into it, going back to design principles, where people don't mind waiting. It is that the uncertainty of being able to do something is what they hate. So if you have like busy street crossings where you're a pedestrian, in some cases there is a button that you can press to actually activate that signal for you to cross. Except you don't know when it will work, right? And many of them don't work. It is just that you're given a button to push to say, okay, maybe something will happen now, right? So the illusion of control is verily around us. And to be honest,
No, it's true for us also, no? Like very often when you're driving from place A to place B, Google will give you two different options, right? There'll be a slower option that is actually going to save you fuel. Often you will have a faster option that is also longer, but your average speed is much higher when you're on that route.
Oh,
And people actually
you're
prefer
always
that because
moving. You're
you're
always
always moving. People prefer to be always moving because they feel like they're doing something. The same reason why we sometimes stand up and start pacing inside a room.
outside labor rooms. Any establishing shot of a kid being born.
Yes.
This is the dad
Father
pacing
walking
up and down. Right? Like you have zero things to contribute here. Maybe smoke a
Correct.
cigarette or two, as per the movie. I don't know what difference it makes, but yeah, pacing. Yeah, interesting.
And then you hear the cries of the baby that is being born.
And labor famously is one thing where you can't predict when the baby will come. Right? It's not like your wife has gone into labor and X amount of time later the baby will come. It could take anywhere, I don't know, from 10 minutes to 20 hours, depending on how that goes. So, yeah.
Since we just spoke about a scene that we see in movies, how do you like to watch your movies? When you go out to watch a movie, Tony,
Mm.
Do you like to go with your family? Do you like to go with friends? How do you like to watch your movies?
I actually don't mind. I'm agnostic about this. Basically, if there is a movie that I like, even remotely, I'll watch it twice at least. Right, like once in the theater or whatever, and then I'm eagerly waiting for its OTT release. And if it's Premilu, maybe like 20 times. It's a comfort movie.
No, let's say it's a highly
No,
anticipated film which you've been looking forward to,
yeah,
and it's released in the multiplex. And while you might watch it a second time or a third time, you're
yeah.
probably looking forward to the first time you're watching it in the multiplex. So now, how would you go about planning for
I
this?
usually go with Rosanna, and I love going for movies. This is the one ritual that we've kept alive. And when we moved to Bombay, even if like a Mallu movie was like some 15 kilometers away, we'd probably drive just to watch it in the theater. Right? So that's how I've always seen my movies. I don't necessarily mind that there are other people with me. I'm okay with that particular thing. But I feel like you have a definitive take on how you like to watch a movie.
Yeah, I love watching movies with Shruti as well, right? But if there are other people involved, right? If there are other
Mm.
friends and there's a plan where, multiple people are coming
Oh,
to a
yeah, so many.
multiplex and then you're going to go in together. Of course, things are better now where you book your tickets online and there's a QR code and you can just go in. I'm very particular about my movies, right? I want to be in
Mm.
there when the first trailer kind
Oh,
of
yeah,
thing
yeah, yeah,
is
correct,
coming
correct,
up,
correct.
ideally. I don't want to miss the trailers. And I want to be there on time. I can't be in the parking lot, 2 minutes before the movie is about to start and then finding my way. That doesn't work for me.
Man.
I know movies don't generally start on time, right? And in India, I think it's become now 30 minutes, 40 minutes before they start a movie,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, there I'll probably give a 10, 15-minute allowance. And I don't want people like, having small talk, gossip during the movie, before the movie, during the trailer. I'm like, I'm here to watch a movie, right? We can catch up for a meal later on if you want to. But
Correct.
when I'm watching a movie, it's me and the movie, right? My wife, of course, we've been married long enough now that she knows that she calls me a movie
Correct.
Nazi, right? So whether that's at home or when we go to multiplex, she knows my very peculiar quirks, and
Mm.
I think I have kind of co-opted her into it now. So she also has become partially a movie Nazi of sorts, right? And
Correct. So
she might not
when
admit it,
you
but
when you
yeah.
both watched Inglorious Bastards together, it was a movie Nazi watching a Nazi movie, and that was in fact the masterpiece. If I am going to a movie, I have to be there before it starts. Right? I don't care if there's national anthem, if there's smoking warning and all. I don't care. I have to see it from beginning to end, right? And Rosanna is more laissez-faire, like, and I'm because I'm usually the one driving. I'm also the one saying we have to leave now, right? Like, and I give an advance notice saying, okay, listen, it is 10 a.m. now. We need to leave by 11:45. Okay, like
Enough time to get ready.
yeah, enough time. And usually what ends up happening is like the Bombay thing, right? Where finally, like now we've come to a place where I don't lose my shit anymore. Like, but again, we reach there and then the movie starts like 25 minutes after the scheduled time of the start because it's Bombay and like you can do. This is actually something that really pisses me off. Is that when people say be at a place at X time and then they don't, right? Like, come on.
And the worst thing is when the movie eventually starts 40 minutes later, after that, there'll be people coming in and walking in front of you to
Correct.
get to their seats,
Correct.
right? They've literally given you a
With kids.
40-minute buffer.
With kids.
They've given you a 40-minute buffer. Broad point, my thing is, there are lots of movies that I want to watch, which Shruti is actually not at all interested in, right? There are movies that she probably won't be interested in, but I'll sort of seed it into her and might get her excited, in which case she'll join me. But there are movies where she's not interested, and I anyway want to watch them. And I'm totally fine going alone and watching movies. It's in fact something that
Mm.
I really enjoy. To the extent that actually it's my most enjoyable way to watch a movie is to go alone and watch it.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I completely love that experience. I don't know, and people find it weird. People find it like,
Why?
yeah,
Oh, I don't mind
I don't
watching a
know.
movie alone.
I
I'm just
love watching it alone. Not don't mind. I just love it. It's one of the most enjoyable,
correct.
bits
No,
of.
but then I think this is true of both of us. Is that if a movie gets us excited, we'll tell like 10 people close to us about it. You have to watch it. Like you have to watch this movie. How have you not watched
What if you die tomorrow? Why have you not yet watched this movie?
this?
I
Great.
reserve that only for Breaking Bad. Yeah, as you
Correct.
know.
Correct. I think one of the things that we've established over this podcast is that couples are actually independent individual beings, right? And for the most part, you can live your life without trying to change the other person, right? I think like the starting point of every relationship is your assumption that you can somehow change this person into the mold that fits you. And somewhere along the way, I got like, yeah, there is no way. Like, I am my person. This person is her own person, and like that's fine.
And if that means
can-
I'm going to miss the national anthem, then so be it.
No, no way. Then I'll go alone. No, but like some of the things that you can't escape are like, if you go to watch a movie together. Like I remember this because there was one time when Bharat Sundaresan spoke about how there was a run out between Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne, and he was talking about, they were basically negotiating like a couple who wanted different things for dinner and ended up stranded. And I pointed out that actually this is not a real couples fight, and Bharat Sundaresan is saying this only because he spends a lot of time away from his wife and he doesn't know what actual couples fights are about. It's usually around stuff like what speed should you set the fan at, right? And there is only one speed. Like if one person wants 5 and another person wants 2, you can't have like one section of the room at 5 and one section of the room at 2, right? Sadly, right? And therefore you have to arrive at a compromise, right?
Which
It's
is a
either
thick
like
blanket.
so speed at 5, thick blanket. At 18 degrees, thick duvet.
Yeah.
Right? Like
You might be a couple, but are you a thermocouple?
oh man.
You were
It's a
saying,
blanket statement.
yeah. Marriage for most part is a beautiful duet, but at other times you need a good duet.
Like I said, I've spent about like 3, 4, 5 days in Australia now. And the one thing that I really love, and like I'm guessing now is me by virtue of spending 5 days away from India, because that I ever write to crib about India, is that I love walking cities, right? And coming here, I've basically walked at least, I'm guessing like easily 8, 9 kilometers a day, right? Like without
Yeah.
blinking. And I don't know if I want to hate on this, but I fervently wish that more Indian cities were walkable, right? And like how beautiful is walking, man? Like just the act of walking is so good. Even if you don't have a podcast in your head, I feel like you're at all points in time sort of solving life's problems or like coming to
Yeah.
terms with something new or finding inspiration in something. So yeah, I feel like walking is underrated.
Walking is incredible and it's massively underrated. I fully agree. It's great for your health, it's great for your mind, it's great for your body. Yeah, I can't say enough about walking. I remember one of my most memorable walks, right? And this again was when I was alone. I was in London when I had gone for the World Cup, right, in 2019. And this was not on one of the match days, right? And I was staying in a cheap Airbnb far from the center of London. And I went to meet some friends of mine at close to the London Bridge, close to the Covent Garden area, somewhere there. And it was about we were done by about 8 p.m. or something, and the sun is still out and it's nice and bright. And I was about to go and take the train to go back to my Airbnb, right? And then I realized, like, why do I want to take the train? And this was I ended up walking for nearly 2 hours, right? And I walked all the way across London. You could see the sights and sounds of the city change. You're going from one part of the city. You can literally see how culture is different in as you go, and there's so much to see, right? It's the people are happy. There are people who are looking busy and stressed. There are people who are chilling. There's a performer on the street, and there are people dropping coins in front of them. And it's just safe to walk everywhere, right? Like there's no risk of being run over. There are no potholes. You're not going to fall into a hole. And I remember picking up. I didn't stop for eating also. I picked up my dinner. I took takeaway, and I just kept eating and walking. And it was, yeah.
You know why I'm laughing, no? Because earlier on in this episode, we've both established how we are sticklers for when we're driving to find the fastest way to reach the next
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
And also how much we value
Yeah.
time and make sure that
Yeah.
we're ahead of schedule for the movie. But again, if it's a case of walking, I'll happily walk 2 hours. Like it's the best.
On that note, right? Like, see, I live in Dubai, and we are now at the fag end of the summer in Dubai, which means the temperature has dropped to a mere 40 degrees, and it's going to go down from here on in, right? And the evening sometimes just around sunset is when it gets very humid as well. But the point is, even in the peakest of the peak summer time in Dubai, if you're up and about at say 6 a.m. or between 6
Yeah.
a.m. and say 7:30 a.m., it's still okay. And it's almost become a ritual every day now because we need to wake up quite early to send my son to school. And after dropping him off at the school bus, I typically end up doing like a 5-6 kilometer walk in the morning, right? And it is just
Wow.
because that is the only time you can actually get to walk. It's a city with, I mean, there's enough scope to walk, except for the weather being the way it is. There is plenty that you can do on foot in Dubai. Yeah, I fully agree with you. I hope India were more walkable.
Yeah. And so much so that when you mentioned London, right, I just remembered my trip to Sri Lanka, which was like a couple of days, nothing more. But I just remember like two memories that stick out for me very readily, and both of them happened because of walking. Right? Like one was along Gaul, I was walking. Dude, like Sri Lanka is like one of my favorite places to be. I'll keep going. Like amazing
Yeah.
food, friendly
It is very
people,
good.
unless they're
Yeah.
trying to depose you as like the premier of the country or something, generally friendly people. And chilled out, right? So I was walking along Gaul, and like I was like, "Fuck, this is exactly like Bombay because it's like the middle of the day, I think 2 p.m. or something, and there are couples sitting and who are like snogging each other, right? And like there is nothing that fills my heart with more joy than seeing this happening in Bombay, where like
Hmm.
people are sitting in the middle of the sun, right? And they like, I love you so much, and or like my hormones are at an all-time high that I don't care. Like it's 2 p.m. and like we're melting literally into each other and I want to snog you. And the second memory was like I was walking along and I saw a family walking of Sri Lankan people. And I'm generally thinking this is a new country, different place, etc. etc. Except the boy was a family of four. There was a girl and a boy, and the boy suddenly like runs ahead and suddenly goes into a bowling action. And I am like, oh fuck. Like we may be
Yeah.
separated by culture, cities,
Yeah.
geographies, etc. But ultimately, the boyish urge to suddenly turn a walk into a bowling action
But did you notice
travels
his
across.
elbow? He's Sri Lankan after all. Did you notice his elbow? Okay, so we've spoken about cars at intersections and walking. So one of the themes for today seems to be transportation. The next thing that I want to talk about is, of course, the fastest form of transportation known to man, which is flying. I know you're not a big fan of flying, right? You don't like the food on flights. You don't like the experience. I actually enjoy flights, especially if it's
Really?
reasonable. Yeah, I like flights as long as there is
You
a PA
like
system.
flights?
I like flights. Yeah,
Are you serious?
yeah. I can't explain it.
Flights? There
If
is
there are,
nothing to like about flights. Do you like the security check experience also?
I like flights. I don't like the experience of getting into a flight. Yeah,
Mm.
I like being
Just the
inside a
flying
plane.
part. Mm.
Just the flying part where they're bringing you something to eat, they're giving you something to drink, and there are some movies running. Right? I just love that part.
Mm.
I don't like it when the flights don't have movies. In that case, I just sleep or read or whatever.
Yeah.
There is this thing that I absolutely hate about being inside a flight while I'm watching the movie when your captain starts speaking, right? And he keeps speaking again and again, and he's muttering absolute incoherent rubbish. Who is he talking to? I can't understand what he's saying. They stop the movie, right? And he's murmuring some rubbish to his crew. Something about the height and the turbulence and the distance or whatever. And sometimes he's just giving you random GK, right? We're now cruising at a comfortable 40,000 feet. The weather outside is it's a crisp minus 23 degrees. If you look to the left through those clouds, you will see the city of I don't know Sharjah disappearing into the darkness. I don't care. Just shut up. I want to watch my movie. I hate it. And in Dubai, we have this particular problem because they repeat everything in two different languages. There's English and then the Arabic version that comes.
Yeah.
Every airline has a rules around how many different languages into which they need to translate everything they
Yeah.
say. I don't know why that's become acceptable or okay. Right? If you're giving me important information that will keep me alive in a way that I can actually hear and understand what you're saying, then I get it. But otherwise, Captain, please just shut up. Flying is serious business. Can you stop with the small talk? Leave your worries outside.
You know what you have inadvertently given away, right? If we ever need secret information from you, the way to do that is to send you to a theater with a bunch of friends, arrive late, and 10 minutes into the movie, suddenly the movie is interrupted by a pirate speaking on theater projector. And Nitin's like, I will give all the information I have. This is the biggest
torture
torture.
works.
No to man.
Torture works. My God. Yeah.
But you
An
like food on
absolute worst
flights?
nightmare. I don't mind it. I mean, I'm not a huge fan. I just like free food. Let's put it that way. I know I've paid for it, but I like the idea of free food and free alcohol, which is something that you get access
Do
to
you
on flights.
know what is the most commonly ordered drink on a plane?
Tomato juice. Yeah, we're aware of this.
Yeah.
We have spoken about this on, I think, episode 3 or 4.
Oh,
Yeah,
what
of
really?
course.
Okay, we've done a full
100%.
circle.
We've done a complete full circle. Yeah. And on that note, I also mentioned that because of the way our mind works when we are flying, we tend to enjoy movies, for instance, a lot more if we
Oh,
watch them up there
really?
than down here. You tend to get a lot more sentimental, much more
Hmm.
easily.
Is this related to the overview effect?
Overview effect. What is that?
Hmm.
Where you look down through the left and you see the city of Sharjah disappearing in the
So the
distance.
overview effect is basically something that is reported by anyone who's traveled in space. When you see the Earth from space,
Correct.
suddenly you feel
Emotion,
vastness of
irritation.
space. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're like, how insignificant am I, the human? And it apparently fills you with a feeling of immense joy and pleasure.
Correct.
On the last flight I took, Indigo actually has like these facts that they write on the cup, right? And they write two truths and a lie, right? And the lie in that cup was that anyone who travels into space actually grows taller by 6 inches or something. And then that was the lie, except it was pointed out to me by someone that this is not true, because when you travel to space, actually your spine expands and you do grow taller. And
Why does your spine expand? No, there are these Einsteinian theories, right? Like time dilation and length contraction that happens when you go out into space. I remember learning these things. But for this, you need to be traveling faster than the speed of light. Basically.
so when the spine is not exposed to the pull of Earth gravity, the vertebra can expand and relax, allowing astronauts to actually grow taller.
Correct. Yeah.
Once they return to Earth, it takes a few months for you to return to your original height.
So when Sunita Williams eventually comes back, we should measure her height. I hope they
They
come
grow
back
taller
safely.
in
Yeah.
stature, but shorter in your estimation of your value to the universe. Thereby, law of conservation of stature.
This is why they say that, the pioneers who go to space, right? We now know a lot about space because we are standing on the shoulder of giants and looking out into space. We have reached the logical endpoint in outer space.
We'll
Yeah.
get lost in space with this episode. I don't know about you guys who are listening, but this is fun for us, definitely. It's like I don't have to hear need to solutionize about anything. And we can agree that the correct speed of the fan is 5, not 2, or 18 degrees in a duvet.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so this was episode 21, where Nitu and I expressed our love for each other and our love for walking, and a thing that you'll see only in India, which is male friends walking together with each other by holding their pinkies, which I feel like is a very underrated thing again. Like your first instinct is to make fun of them. The point of the hold is not a firm grip or anything, right? It is like, I've got you, bro. And so this is that episode where we walked around aimlessly.
Holding somebody's hands while walking, unless you're swinging in sync, it's quite
But you do
quite inefficient.
sync, no? Inevitably, any two people or multiple people who walk together end up synchronizing their speeds, right? Which is why, like, armies that march, when they cross a bridge, have to stop marching and follow the step and like, otherwise wavelength matches too much that the bridge only will collapse. Thankfully, no such thing has happened on this episode of Leftover Lasagna. We shall be back again. Also, for anyone who wants to know, the rest of your day is going to be amazing. I am ahead in time by virtue of being in Australia. So don't worry. You'll have a great day. It is inevitable. I have seen the future.
Thank you, Tony from the future. I hope your spine is also extended because you seem to have transcended space.
Until next time, this is Nitin and Tony signing off. But one important thing for our listeners. Please, guys, what is happening? Like, you guys are not rating us 5 stars. You're not telling other people. You also know that we can name and shame you because we know who all are listening to our podcast.
What we have is a very specific set of skills to catch you and to kill you. How much time you have taken to give us a 5-star review?
Brilliant. All right. On that note, thank
Bye
you so
bye.
much. Bye. Have a great day.
Thank you.